how many children have asked me that exact same question during the exact same period. Now, you're the first one for this period, but, fifth period, several people like back to back. And I'm like, why don't people just look at the Google Sheet? Yep. Thank you for mocking me. Appreciate that. Okay, so you said 30 and 34. Let's get fancy. Yeah. And sloppy X and Y axis. There we go. Depends on what you're doing. Okay, so 7 pi over 3. Where is 7 pi over 3? Well, here's 0. We got 1 pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, 6 pi over 3. Oh, 7 pi over 3. Right there. Are they asking me for an x value, a y value, or a slope? They're asking for the x value, right? So, what do you think it is? Do you think it's 1/2? Do you think it's radical 2 over 2? Do you think it's radical 3 over 2? Or do you think it's the farthest one to the right, 1? So do you think that dotted line comes down and hits the x-axis at 1/2, radical 2 over 2, radical 3 over 2, or 1? Looks like 1/2 to me as well. Right? Halfway between 0 and 1. So I guess 17 pi over 4, which is what you asked about for question 34. The good news is it's based on pi over 4. The bad news is you picked another cosine. That's kind of boring, but we'll do it because we got the pi over 4 in there. So let's see here. 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How many do we need? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. If you knew that 16 would get you right back to the beginning, that would make life easier, wouldn't it? Okay, and 17 pi over 4. Same place as 1 pi over 4. What's the relationship between the angle 1 pi over 4 and 17 pi over 4? We used a word, started with the letter C, ended with O-terminal. Coterminal, nice job. Okay, because they end in the same place. So, they want the x value. You think the x value, this is why you've got to be careful with your circles and how you draw your scales, but do you think that x value is 1/2? Nope, I don't think so either. Do you think it's radical 2 over 2, or do you think it's radical 3 over 2, or do you think it's 1? It's the next one over, radical 2 over 2. Now, if you get things like this, like 28, where it's cosecant, you better find the sine first. You better go back to the regular trig function and find that one first. Now, the worst thing you could do on question 28 is I could see a kid do this. Now, the good news is they knew that sine went with cosecant. The bad news is they thought they were supposed to flip the angle over. I don't even know what they're going to do with that. Because they're going to get, 4 over 3 pi? What radian measure is that on the circle? I don't know. That's not what they're asking you to do in a case like that. So, find the sine at that location. After you find the sine at that location, which is, let's see, that's a y value, and it's not 1/2. It is positive radical 2 over 2. What are you going to do with it to find the cosecant? What are you going to do with it to find the cosecant? Flip it, right? Now some of you will probably write 2 over radical 2, and you're not going to lose any credit. I'm not going to take that away from you because, rationalizing that, yeah, we can. But if you decide that you wanted to rationalize it, there's nothing wrong with that. You would probably do this, and you would probably give me the answer radical 2. So those two answers are both the same. I'm not taking points off one way or the other. Nope. You do need to recognize them, but, especially anything else on 4 or 3 that you want to go over? Yes, Miss Sunny. 26. Tangent 300. Okay, the tangent of 300. 300 degrees is down here. Okay, they are looking for tangent. Is that an x value, a y value, or a slope? Tangent is slope, right? So we want the slope of that line right there. Now, do you think it has something to do with 1, right? Because this is the one in the middle. Do you think it has something to do with that or not? Yes or no, do you think the answer to my tangent question has something to do with the one in the middle of quadrant 1? 300 degrees. Do you think this is based on a 45-degree angle? I hope you say no. Okay, do you think it has something to do with the more shallow slope? Or do you think it has something to do with the more steep slope? What is the slope of the more steep one? Okay, if you don't know these 3 slopes, inside out, backwards, and forwards, you're not putting in enough effort, and tomorrow is a test. We have radical 3, 1, and radical 3 over 3. So can you tell me the tangent of negative, oh my goodness, I think I just gave away the answer. What's the tangent of 300? It's not radical 3, but you're close. Ah, yes, because it has a negative slope. Sax, you had one? Okay. All right. Excellent. Yes.
So, where did the definition from?
300 degrees is the angle measurement that lands you on that spot. Right down here. Now, I understand what you're getting at. You're asking me about the actual coordinate. The actual coordinate there is 1/2, negative radical 3 over 2. That's the actual coordinate sitting right there on the edge of the circle. Cosine is the x, sine is the y, tangent is the slope. Now, if you want me to do this kind of the long way, right, we know tangent is the y divided by the x. So that would be negative radical 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, which back in middle school we taught you that division is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, and voila, we get negative radical 3. So if you would like to do it that way, but if you know it's going back to that 60-degree angle in quadrant 1, you could just use that and realize it has a negative slope.
So are they always going to be either 60 or 45?
Amen. Unless they're based on 90, right? What if they're on the axis?
What, because it was
0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, pi. Some of the slopes are undefined, right? What kind of slopes are undefined? Right, your vertical slopes are undefined, right? What about these slopes? 0, right? Horizontal ones, like at 0, 2 pi, pi. I know, it's too many carbs. What? 20? Sure. Okay, now, I want you to notice that this question is not asking me what is the tangent of 4 pi over 5. They didn't ask me that. They asked me whether the sign was positive or negative. Okay, we have decided to split this circle up into a lot of different things. One of them was not 1/5 of pi. If pi is over here and we decide to split it up into fifths of pi, this would be 5 pi over 5, right? Where would you find 4 pi over 5? Would you find it in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2? You would have to find it in quadrant 2, right? I mean, it kind of makes sense that if you have to split that top half of the circle up into 5 pieces, and you want 4 of them, it's going to be landing somewhere in this quadrant, right? Whether you know what it is or not. Could you convert it 2 degrees? Sure, I taught you how to do that. So if you really want to convert it 2 degrees, just so that it makes more sense in your mind, go for it. But you should probably just know that it's in quadrant 2. Now, you tell me what you know about every tangent in that quadrant. Aren't they always negative in that quadrant? That's all we wanted to know. It never asked me what is the tangent, because that's not one of the ones we know based on pi over 3s and pi over 6s and pi over 4s. So, all I wanted to know was positive or negative. Okay, got any other homework questions? Yep.
I guess
10? Okay. Question 10. If we go 3 units to the left, are we going to be able to make a triangle out of that? Negative 3, 0. Can you make a triangle out of that? Because I always told you to draw to the closest side of the x-axis, but you're on the x-axis. So can you make a triangle out of that? No, we can't. So I told you, in that situation where you find yourself on the axis, you need to now think unit circle. Okay? So instead of thinking that this has a radius of 3, let's just think of it as a unit circle, and I'm over here at pi. All these other ones you could actually draw triangles, except for maybe 9. You can't draw a triangle with that one either. But you have to kind of revert yourself back to unit circle. So, what's the cosine? Cosine is the x value, right? What's the cosine? What's the x value all the way out here on the edge of the unit circle? Negative 1, right? Remember, don't worry about the 3's anymore, right? You might as well, get rid of this idea that we counted 3 units to the left. All right, so how about the sine? What's the y value out there on the edge? The y value is 0. How about the tangent out there on the edge, which that's the slope of this line? Well, that's also 0. Okay. So, what about the secant? Secant goes with cosine. That is negative 1. Excellent. How about that cosecant? I got a vote for undefined. Do you agree with that or not? So we've got to go down here and look at the sine. Is the reciprocal of 0 undefined? Yes. Good job. What about the cotangent? Yeah, same thing, undefined. But yeah, anytime you find yourself on the axis, you have to just switch gears. Got to go unit circle. Because you can't draw a triangle. Anything else? 50? Maybe. Let's see what it is. Might take more time than we want. Oh, remember I told you we wouldn't give you any of these ones that have because you're going to figure out where based on whole numbers of pi right there, you're either going to land on the left or the right. That's actually an easy one. Because what's the slope no matter whether I land on the left side of the circle or the right side? 0, right? So that one's not really going to be too bad. Because they're whole numbers of pi's. So I'm either going to end up with something like, some whole number of pi, and it's, you basically have 0 minus 0. Is that it? Yeah. 28. Yeah, I already did that one, I think. Yep, we already did that one. So it's recorded again, so it's already recorded, so you can go back and watch it. Just find your 3 pi over 4, get the y value at radical 2 over 2, flip it over.